informed, particularly Williams. I'm really hoping that Williams finds something this year. I don't think Kubica is going to be the man to deliver it.
No.
And I actually think he's going to be at the back in every Grand Prix. But I'm excited to see what Russell can do if the car is even halfway decent. And I do believe them that they're really trying this year to find something to make some correction to the downward spiral that they've been in. McLaren I have no faith in at all.
No, I can see that this being yet another transition year, which is going to be really annoying for Sainz, who has gone out of their way to try and... Oh, that's okay. It was just...
What's wrong?
No, it was lagging a bit. I tell you what this also does, because I don't think it remembers what tyres we've got. Oh, no, it does.
Oh. Damn it. It wasn't for those meddling kids.
Them pesky teens. Right, let's do that. Let's see how we get... Oh, no, I don't want to add a stint. Take it off. Thank you. Right, actually, you know what? Meh. Yeah, I think for me, there's I don't really understand how they can still be so far back when they've got everything at their doorstep, and it just needs like proper working together and all of that kind of stuff. I'm super worried for Kubica. I think it's going to be a huge mistake. But I really want to be proven wrong at the same time.
I'm the same. I mean, it's not that I hate him. I just, as I keep saying to people, the Kubica that was and the Kubica that is, they're very different prospects.
Yeah.
Are you ready, sir?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, I was actually shocked and appalled about how bad last year's Williams was, because I really didn't think it was going to be that shoddy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, let's get the car up to temperature on this lap. We're learning the gears, so go through them with
Yeah, and I know they kind of went, oh yeah, we've immediately said that was terrible and we've gone to work on next year's car, but on what basis have they done that on? Did they know exactly why that car was terrible out of the gate? Because it looked like it was going to be good, and everyone said, well, that car looks like it should be fast. And
yeah, I mean, and it's the car, that like other cars, where they had failings, you kind of knew where those failings were.
Yeah.
And the teams talked about them, but I honestly don't know specifically what it was about the Williams, but it was just, I mean, wow, it was shockingly bad. And I say that by today's standards, right? Because of course, if you look back down history of Formula One, to have the whole grid covered by less than 2 seconds from pole, which is quite often the case.
Yeah.
I mean, that was never the case back in the day.
You used to be on row 3 and still be 2 seconds off the pace back in
early so
90s.
I mean, I don't want to take away from how accomplished these teams are and the fantastic work that they do. I mean, even your Marussias and your Caterhams would have qualified quite well if that was their relative time to pole.
Yeah.
Back in the early 90s. I mean, like 40 managed to qualify. In some cases, 15 seconds off pole?
Yeah, the only time they was within 107% in 1995 was in Adelaide, Australia.
So, it's testament really, but by modern standards, that Williams was a dog. It didn't seem to have any comfortable operating window. It didn't seem good on fuel, good on tyres. It didn't seem good on straights, on corners, in wet weather. I think Lance Stroll maybe deserves a little bit more credit for some of the drives he got out of it. Same goes for Sorokin, actually. I think Sorokin did a respectable job.
Yeah.
But I flatter myself and Williams that they can't possibly make a car as bad as that one again. Although I'm not sure I really believe it.
No, but the last time they had a really, really god-awful car was 2013. And then 2014 came, and that was a marked improvement. So I'm hoping that if the cycle of life continues, that will continue as a thing as well. Okay, we're going to be quiet now. That was a better hold.
And a bit of a better start. Not much, though. I'm still getting completely monstered.
Wow. So this... I'm in for a front wing. So I was napalmed from behind and then driven into. That was a bizarre start.
The same thing happened to me, though. Vettel ran into the back of me, and I mean, I was lucky he didn't push me in front of anyone, but I got completely monstered. Like, I got off the line faster this time, but the cars behind me were just so much faster. I don't get it. I don't know. The AI seems to be really balked here. Do you need to restart?
I'll just pit. It's fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because the AI really does seem piss poor here, doesn't it?
Yes, here it does. Which is... It's not a new track. I don't know why it's... But it's all round Sector 1, and also actually coming into the Maggots-Beckett's complex. They always want to try and overtake you there, when it's just... It would never happen.
Sort it out, Cody's. Oh, freaking no. Right, let's see if I can't have a bit of a recovery drive here since I've lost 3 places.
Well, I've held up everyone from 11th downwards, even though I've got no front wing.
Good man. I knew I could rely on you. I'm sorry about your nose, though. That sucks. Because you can't, like, this is not a track where you can compensate even for an end plate, because there's so many fast corners that you just can't hold the line. I found the same thing to be true in Bahrain. Like, if you lose your end plate in Bahrain, then you have to stop.
Yeah. What's really funny, though, is that I tried to put into the pits. I couldn't get into the pits because Magnussen was there, but I kept on going over and he's had to pit with me. Oh, dear.
So you did some sheep herding?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, fortunately, it's messed up Vettel's race because he does have front wing damage from running into the back of me, and he hasn't pitted, and he's now, I think he's 10th.
Okay.
So, unlucky. Anyway, back on with things.
Sorry.
I thought I want to end the episode by us making some predictions for the new year, actually. Ooh. But I think we should take a moment to talk about our beloved Sauber, who are missing from the grid now for the first time in 27 years.
Yes, the name is no more.
No, but apparently the company is still there.
Okay.
Because what I was worried about was that Sauber themselves had been bought, but that is not the case. So, right. You know how in other motorsport categories, for example, like the Subaru World Rally Team was run by ProDrive?
Yes.
So the cars were prepared and whatever by ProDrive, but it just wasn't called ProDrive. Well, apparently it's the same arrangement here. So the team's called Alfa Romeo Racing, but Sauber Motorsport AG are the ones actually running everything. The chassis has been renamed in Alfa Romeo, but Sauber remains solvent and operational, and if Alfa Romeo ever pull out, then the team would revert to being Sauber, is my understanding.
Yes. This makes me happy.
Yeah, but I'm still sad that they've dropped the name. And so is the internet, from what I can tell, because all the comments were like, what was the point of dropping Sauber from the name? Like, no!
Because it feels a bit hollow, doesn't it? That it's not really Alfa Romeo, because then what are you trying to prove? I was having this chat with someone, and you're right. Everyone in our conversation was like, I'm really disappointed to see Sauber go. Someone, though, did post in there, but that Sauber name was basically hollow for the last few years whilst Manisha continued to ruin things anyway. And I can kind of see their point, but again...
Well, sort of, but I mean, like, Peter Sauber's son is still on the board.
Yeah.
It is still, like, family run to a certain extent.
Yeah.
They just have different... I mean, like, McLaren's still McLaren, but Bruce McLaren's been dead 50 years. You know, it's...
Yeah.
But I get what they're saying. I mean, it wasn't the original incarnation of Sauber, which is definitely true. But by the same measure, I mean, I do think F1 needs to do more to protect the names that have a loyal following. But speaking of hollow names as well, we were going to talk about Brabham.
Yes.
Now, you and I spoke about this on a podcast from 2012.
Ooh, wow.
I've been looking at joining the crowdfunding scheme, Project Brabham. And basically David Brabham of Simtech and being Jack Brabham's son fame was trying to reform the Brabham, motor racing developments they're called, aren't they really? But they raced as Brabham, which is obviously the F1 team founded by his father, and he's the only person, I believe, to win a world championship in a car carrying his own name. Well, at the time, they were looking for crowdfunding, and what they offered in return was that they were crowdsourcing the car. So you could buy a package, and they'd... how it worked was some of you were engineers, some of you were drivers, and you would get coaching and development in these fields. But also, if you were already an engineer, then you could back the team with a little bit of money, and you would get to help design their car.
Okay.
And I was really keen on doing it because there was a race engineers course. So they were going to put together like an online learning portal where you could learn to be a race engineer.
Awesome.
And that sounded well worth like the €250 asking price. And I thought, yes, please, sign me up, all in my face, God bless you, man. However, I was put off and I didn't ultimately do it because a lot of people were saying, well, I backed 2 years ago and nothing has happened. And so I gave up on it, and I thought, okay, well, this is just another, it's a David Brabham pipe dream. It's not happening. But now Brabham have actually built a hypercar, which has just broken a record at Nürburgring and is entering competition next year, I want to say.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if this car was designed by people who bought into the team through crowdfunding or whether they went a more conventional route. I don't even know if the online learning portal was ever finished, but Brabham are back and they've built their own car. And there was an interview with David Brabham recently talking about this return to motorsport, and he was talking about that he'd been approached by F1 teams and new entrants to use the Brabham name and bring it back onto the F1 grid as part of some cooperation. Now, he was talking in terms of that he didn't think it was legitimate.
Right.
However, he kind of gave the game away a little bit because later on he said something that sort of gave away what he really was thinking, which was that these people who'd approached him were not prepared to give him a senior role in the team, so he wasn't going to be like the team principal. And I think that's probably the reason why he didn't, because what he was saying is that, well, these weren't really going to be Brabham, so basically it was like they're not going to let me run it. But where this gets interesting is that Racing Point Force Badgerstroll had been promising us for quite a long time that they were going to drop the Racing Point name because everyone hated it and even they hated it. By the way, Lewis Hamilton is really slow, and every car down to me in sixth is backed up. I've fallen off the back of them a bit because I ran wide at a corner, but they're all nose to gearbox. First to fifth, and I don't know what's gone on, but he's very, very slow. Okay. Anyway, so from what I took away from that, because that's the only team I could think of that was searching for a new name, it seems like maybe Mr. Stroll had approached them about purchasing the rights to use the Brabham name. But David Brabham wouldn't sell because he was not going to be put in charge of the team or into any sort of management or running of the team position. Right. I don't know how likely you think that is, but I mean, could you think of any alternative? Because we've not heard about any new entrants on the horizon.
No. The only other thing I could think of, and this links back to our earlier conversation, who would pick up Red Bull's entries if they walked? Maybe.
Yeah, because I mean, there's no other team up for grabs really. I mean, I honestly believe if Red Bull received a big enough offer for Toro Rosso right now, they would sell in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But there's sort of no. There's no sign of a new entrant, and there's no team other than Force India whose future has been really in doubt, because it's not like Williams are going to approach you and say, well, we think the Williams name is bullshit, so we'd like to change it, please. No. Sauber have just been rebranded as Alfa Romeo. Yep. McLaren are not going to rebrand themselves. I mean, the only alternative I can think of is Haas, but why would Gene Haas rebrand his own team?
When his whole mission is, I'm getting my name out there for products that I own. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is nobody else that leaps to mind. And it makes sense to me, right? Because they were really nervous about what to do with the branding of Force India after they took it over. And a lot of people were saying, well, they're going to call it Stroll Racing Group or whatever. But the public dismissal of that was so strong that you and I were already saying that it's bad enough that he's put his son in the race seat. I don't think that he would name the team in such a way as to make it clear that's why Lance is there.
Yeah.
And obviously they want to have a strong brand, and I do wonder if hello Beetlejuice mate, I hope you're well. I do wonder if they were trying to revive the Brabham name to give the new team some racing pedigree and to have a name on the car that lends some credibility to his son's racing career.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much sense that makes, but it's the only explanation I could think of.
It does, because if Stroll wins for Stroll Racing Group, or whatever it's called, that's a hollow-ish win in a way, because then everyone will just go, oh, it's because Daddy paid for it and Daddy made it all right. And it's not because Lance Stroll himself has done anything to the actual team. So therefore, it doesn't really bode itself well in that context either. So, yeah, it needs to be something that is not Stroll-related for it to kind of carry weight. So what else would you do apart from revive other names?
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me that they're sort of gearing up. They were aiming to revive. I mean, I know technically Brabham's Australian, but they were trying to revive a name with racing pedigree from the UK.
Yeah.
But you know, there's still plenty of names on the shelf. You know, I'm sure Eddie Jordan wouldn't mind selling his naming rights. Or you've got Tyrrell. You could always revive the Tyrrell name.
Yeah.
I just guess these deals take time to put together and are probably quite legally complex, as we saw with Team Lotus, as you recall.
Oh yeah, all of them.
Because actually it was Colin Chapman's family that had they owned the rights to the name Team Lotus, and Lotus Cars didn't. And then they sold the rights to Tony Fernandez, but then it turned out that the court said actually Lotus Cars have the rights to Team Lotus. So it can be very confusing, because technically I believe Paul Stoddart owns the rights to Tyrrell.
Yes. That's true.
And to Minardi in certain contexts.
Mm-hmm.
The rights to the Minardi name are split between him and Giancarlo Minardi. They should get Jacques Villeneuve on board if they want a Canadian name. I could see that. Villeneuve Grand Prix.
Yeah,
The only problem is that I believe Jacques Villeneuve hates Lance Stroll. Well, he hates everybody. He's a bitter old man now. Oh, I just realised I missed the pit stop and my tyres are a vibrant sunburst orange.
Excellent.
I have caught up to the back of Raikkonen though after my off, so I may yet be able to recover something from this Grand Prix. I mean, they're having the launch in Canada, and I mean, there's so many. It's so easy to come up with a name that's better than Racing Point. I mean, I know you don't want to rush the decision, but they've had months and months to do this. And
Maple Leaf GP.
Yeah. Well, even that's better than Racing Point, let's be honest. I get the feeling, actually, that this Brabham story is true, and they're called Racing Point now because it's too late for them to really do anything else.
Yeah, that does make sense.
You know, I mean, that really is all I can think of. And to be honest, I would have kind of liked to have seen the Brabham name return. Even though it's not really Brabham.
Yeah, I don't know, I've never really had too much of an affinity with it. I think because it reminds me of Bernie.
Beetlejuice still has hopes for the name Power Stroller Racing. To be fair, that's better than Racing Point, mate.
I would live for that name. As long as they then had baby merchandise.
I'm still hoping for Dildo King to finally step up to the plate and title sponsor a team.
Yes.
Because I do wonder what would happen, how the sport would respond. Because Durex was controversial, right? But here's the thing: there's nothing in law, like there was with tobacco or alcohol, about adult websites and service providers or whatever. I mean, like Berlin is covered in Dildo King posters all the time. I actually saw a flyer attached to a substation box that was advertising a blow-up Donald Trump fuck doll. So you know, like you could actually have quite a lot of fun if you had the money and a cheeky sense of humour. I'd love to see, you know, a Dildo King branded Formula One car. I'd be totally behind that. Because I mean, the puns write themselves, really. You know, during the commentary.
I feel like the time for that should have been 2014, though, when they had those god-awful nose codes.
God-awful noses, yeah. Well, you know, you had the flip-flop manufacturers sponsoring the Halo.
Yeah.
You could have had the dildo company sponsoring the dildo noses. It would have been so good, though, the commentary on that. And it's the Dildo King on the inside.
Oh, he's taking him up he's hitting right up the rear. Yeah.
So, what else has been going on before we get on to making some predictions for the new season, which I know is a little early. Normally we do this after testing, but there's a good reason I want to have a little bit of an earlier predictathon, because we'll be predicting different things, I think.
Okay. Oh, Carlos. Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, Carlos. Now, some other stuff I do want to talk about. First of all, we only touched on it briefly previously. Andreas Seidel taking over as the head of McLaren Racing, which I kind of thought was Zach Brown's job, but turns out he's delegating. Spend more time taking burgers. A guy from Chevrolet out for lunch.
Yeah.
And I wonder what you think about this, because it does to me seem like a logical appointment. I think the guy did great work at Porsche. He's got a proven track record in motorsport. However, it's not like this is the first time McLaren have made a fairly big motorsports-related appointment saying, oh, well, this will solve all our problems.
Yeah, to me, this is, again, this part of the whole we're restructuring, but we've been restructuring pretty much since about 2012, and nothing's stuck yet. So, like, lovely, another appointment. It does worry me a little bit that it's probably yet another talent that is going into a drain of, like a talent drain pool. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I'm wondering how many careers McLaren are going to put the bullet in the back of the head of.
Yes.
Because it's claimed quite a few scalps so far.
And the worry for me is that from the outside looking in, it's a team that doesn't have a structure and a proper hierarchy. And so what they need to be able to do, if they're going to actually make these appointments like worthwhile and bring in the fruits of their labour, is to actually give them the freedom to do the job that they need to do. And traditionally in McLaren, that has never really been the thing and their ethos, because you've always had the great Ron giving exactly what he thinks should be happening in XYZ position and problem. So then, like, stop hiring people who have got like a really great track record if you aren't going to give them the freedom and the ability to do what they need to do, because they're going to be too busy answering to shareholders and therefore not being able to do their job.
Very interesting point raised by Mr. Beetlejuice here, which is that yet again Monaco and India are on the same weekend, and he wonders where Mr. Brown will be this year.
Ooh.
Because McLaren are running their own entry this year. Am I correct in saying?
I think so.
Managed by Bob Fernley. It's a good question. I do wonder where he's going to be.
That'll give a big telling point on where his priorities lie, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to say it right now, actually. I bet we'll see him pop up at Indy.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
And he'll be like photobombing in all of Alonso's Instagram pictures.
Yeah. Look at this amazing commercial deal that I put together. Sponsored by... Wendy's, I'd say.
Yeah, Wendy's and Chevrolet.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny actually. I made a joke that he would power his cars with Chevy power, and then that's exactly what they've done. I honestly think they're going to move more and more towards Indy, particularly if this initial campaign works out well for them. And they're just so terrified of Fernando Alonso moving too far away from them. I do want to actually mention Nando very quickly, because obviously he had another success recently. But I want to put out a controversial opinion.
Ooh.
So, obviously Fernando is a big brand.
Yes.
And he's proving increasingly popular now he's retired from Formula One, which seems kind of odd, but that's the way it's gone. All these big motorsport series have been publicly courting him.
Yes.
Given what he's won since he started to move away from Formula One, and given that these seem to be sort of... He drops into a car that was already going to win. Do you think these wins have any merit? Because do you know what I mean? Like, he's just turned up one day in these teams, taken over someone's seat in a car that was probably already going to win, and then he's just won. Now, I don't want to detract from his drives, because his drives were excellent, but...
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get it.
Like when he won in WEC with Toyota, like they didn't really have any legitimate competition, and he can't even take the credit for helping build the team up to that point because he wasn't there. It's just the car got good, like pretty unbeatable, and then he just sort of parachuted into a seat on his name, and he won, which everyone expected them to do. I don't know. I mean, like Beetlejuice feels like they have merit, and I don't want to detract from his driving at all. I think his drives were superb, but to me it just doesn't carry the same prestige somehow as his, his championship wins at Renault or some of his amazing drives at Ferrari, because there you could see him like the impact of him. It wasn't like the car was already amazing and he just had to get it across the line.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Nice fastest lap there.
Thanks.
Casual, drop that in. I do think they do have merit. What do I think? I
have thoughts.
Yeah, mummy. I think they have merit. I think it's a very different discipline in terms of he needs... Oh, shit. Caught the curb. What am I trying to say? Teammates. There we go.
Yeah.
It's a team spirit and a team effort. And so he is so reliant on everyone else being able to do their job as well, which I appreciate is the same in Formula One, but it's a different type of achievement. I don't think it's necessarily a bigger or a worse one. It's just much more about inter-team relations and battles and stuff like that. And I think what's really interesting is that for someone who I would never have put as a team player, it's nice to see him doing well as part of a real team experience, I guess. Even though the media would never actually portray that as being what's happened.
No, I mean, but it hasn't, right? Because all the headlines are Alonso saves the day.
Yeah.
But again, like I really don't want to detract from what he's accomplished at all. I just it just felt like a foregone conclusion somehow, and thus I find it hard to... I mean, I'm sure, like, over time the record books will read in a way that favours him regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, and it can go both ways, right? Because I think Rosberg and Button in particular are guys who have suffered from holding a world championship title that a lot of people don't seem to rate very highly. Now, personally, I rate both very highly. I mean, particularly Rosberg, because Rosberg won on the longest season we'd ever had. So, if anything, I think Rosberg's championship is actually very worthy indeed, because he had to maintain a consistent level over a much longer period of time than some other seasons that we've run.
Yeah.
So it's a genuine mark of quality that he was able to. And I know people will point to the fact that Lewis's engine blew up in Malaysia, I think it was, but that's always been a factor in Formula One. It could happen to anybody.
Yep.
But however, plenty of people view Rosberg as an undeserving world champion, or that his championship is somehow meritless. And I just find it odd that he has to deal with that, but Alonso can be parachuted into a winning team and be considered to be the deciding factor somehow.
Yeah.
In that victory, and to some extent take the lion's share of the glory from the victory. It's a funny old game, isn't it, Formula One and motorsport in general, about how people's legacies are viewed.
Yeah. And it's so subjective as well, depending on times, and because like you might hear of someone having dominant machinery, and that's why Rosberg's is viewed as being like a lucky championship or whatever, but no one says that about Nigel Mansell in 1992 anymore.
No, even though that car was insane spaceship technology from the future.
Yeah. And he'd won it like in 10 races in, but everyone's like, wow, that car and driver combo were dominant, blah 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 blah, which is fine, but it's almost like they've gone, oh well, he worked for it so long towards it, and those kind of things. It's almost like
that's part of it.
Yeah, and history kind of changes people's opinions, and once you get further away from something, I think you start to appreciate things more. It's the whole rose-tinted glasses effect, I think.
That's why I was mightily impressed by Lewis's first championship win at Mercedes, because you saw what had to be done to get the team there, and you could see the impact that he had, and he had the patience to work towards it.
Yeah.
And I do think that lends credibility to a driver. You've mentioned Nigel Mansell, and I thought a heretical thought while you were talking about him. I never actually rated him that highly. Shock horror. Not Nigel. But really, this came to me actually, and you just reminded me of it, during another one of the F1 fan voice polls.
Yeah.
And they asked, it was a very specifically worded question, because they were asking which driver you enjoyed the most. Or which one was your favourite. So there was no implications there about performance on track.
Yeah.
It was just, which did you like best? And they presented a series of options, and I ended up actually opting for Damon Hill, which surprised me. But when I watch back old seasons, I actually rate Damon's driving very highly, but also I appreciated the time he took at every Grand Prix to talk to the British press.
Yeah.
At length.
He just seemed like a nice guy. And that goes so much.
I
think that's why I also really became a Button fan, was because they just seemed like genuine nice guys that you could have a chat with at a nice human level.
Yeah, and Button would have been my number one actually, were it not for the fact that I just somehow lend Damon more credit for his driving, particularly in his championship year. Because it was kind of, he had so many nearly years, did Damon, and he was at that team 4 years before he won the championship.
Yeah.
And there is the same to be said of Button, but I don't know, there's something about Damon that I feel like he's been, perhaps more than other drivers, he's had his legacy diminished, or he's been ignored somewhat by the passage of time.
Agree.
Beetlejuice agrees with me. In my opinion, Mansell was as a driver was overrated. Yeah, I thought so. Even as a kid, I just thought he seemed like a slightly fat middle-aged man from Birmingham. Like, I've seen some of his moves and everything from before I was watching Formula One, and I will admit he had some racing instinct. There were some great overtakes, and like him and Patrese going at it I think was amazing to watch. But maybe it's because, and this is why I worry about Kubica's legacy, maybe it's because my enduring memories of Mansell are his return with McLaren.
Okay.
After he'd gone to IndyCar, and do you remember how sort of fat and useless he seemed?
Yeah.
And then he quit, didn't he, partway through the season because he was too big for the car or something.
Yeah, he'd done 2 races, didn't he, that season. Blundell stood in for him because he couldn't fit in the car. But that was the whole... so obviously after Senna's death, he came back in 94, was immediately fast and had kind of like lauded it up, which was fine. But then as soon as he wasn't in his like beloved environment and went to go and do something else, he didn't really like commit properly to it, and it just all felt awkward, which is what I think this Kubica thing also feels like. And yeah, it's just moosey. My problem with Mansell is that he just isn't likeable. he's that kind of guy that you go to and you'd think, oh, please don't sit next to me at coffee morning if I was in an old people's home.
Yeah, well, that's what they say in the Williams film, right? Like they said, well, he's an arse, which I thought was a great, which I thought is a very apt description of him. And maybe that's part of the reason why maybe I don't rate him so highly, because to me, like the likability of the driver is actually an important factor.
Same.
Beetlejuice makes another great point, and this is something that I've actually often thought about. He said Jacques Villeneuve had massive stones and was a great overtaker, but it doesn't make him an all-time great. Jacques Villeneuve, to me, is one of the all-time great mysteries of Formula One, because he came in with such a bang, and then just became meh very, very quickly. And I would say part of that is because he went to BAR, which was an obvious move at career suicide, even though BAR, I don't think necessarily disgraced themselves, except with that hideous livery. But it was never going to pan out the way that he was obviously hoping it would. But don't you think it was odd that he just... Yeah, Pollock did sort of shoehorn him into that team, you're right, but I mean, what do you reckon? Do you think we just all, like, the car did the heavy lifting for Villeneuve and we all just overrated him, or do you think, like, he just lost his mojo? I mean...
I think he did not like and did not get accustomed to the grooved tyres, because as soon as the grooved tyres came in, he fell back into basically where everyone else was, because he was no better than Button when they were together, no better than Panis when they were together. Trashed Zonta, but then Zonta got trashed by everyone. And
to be fair against Trulli, he was with Trulli for a bit, right?
Trulli trashed him, because that was just for 3 races at Renault at the end of 2014. And then obviously you had that 2015 year with Sauber where it was just half the season was awful. And it was almost like funny to watch him do terribly, and then it kind of all clicked and he was all right before he then got booted back out again for Kubica.
I always forget he drove for Sauber and Renault, you know, particularly Renault. Like, I remember opening a Wikipedia page once and I saw him, like, on the rankings listed as a Renault driver, and I was like, was someone high when they wrote this article? But it turns out no, he actually was at Renault. He just, if you blinked, you missed it. Yeah,
because they booted... sorry, it was Fisichella who was up against, not... no, it was up against Alonso, sorry, because it was Trulli that got booted, because he was off to Toyota to replace Panis, who'd retired, and then they brought him in as a 3, like, race stint with an option to have him for next year, and then they was like, nah, we're good.
Do you know, Panis is actually, since we're talking about drivers and their legacies, I think Panis is a driver who, I think his loyalty was punished, wasn't it, really?
Yep, absolutely. So, as I put him down as my favourite all-time driver in my little thing. Initially, it was because I thought it said penis on the screen as a child and thought that was hilarious. His son's a decent driver as well. Aurelian Panis does.
That's a hell of a name.
I know. he was in World Touring Car last I saw of him, but I don't keep up with that series particularly. And yeah, he was French through and through and stuck with Prost and co. But then he was the man that kind of kick-started this whole I can be a test driver and then come back and do well. But I don't think anyone really has done it particularly better than perhaps Alonso, who then done it like 2 years later when he went from Minardi to test for Renault and then come back in 2003. Because it was kind of like the move was basically don't now take a drive down the grid, go for a role in the top team as a tester to show your worth. So that's
I think that was a mark of his quality, though, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
At least that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
The fact that he was able to do that and come back so strong.
Yeah.
And also, like, everyone points to his '97 season, but I don't think you can point to that season enough because until he had that accident, he was scintillating in a car that had no right to be there.
Championship contender, running third in the championship, doing superb stuff. Yes, that.
I'm a little bit faster than both Raikkonen and Bottas, but I'm scared because of the AI, and they're fighting each other all the time, and I can't go 3 wide to fast corners with them. Let's see if I can't get past him now. I've been trying for like 3 laps now.
I'm hoping I can get this Gasly Hulkenberg baton. Ooh, that doesn't sound good.
No, lost part of my front wing. I'm hoping that I can... Yeah, 3 laps to go. Fuck it, I'm staying out. I massively overfueled the car as well, which has not done me any favours this Grand Prix.
No, this has been great for me. So I put 3 extra laps in, and I've ran mixed fuel free for most of it, and I've just nearly got all of it down and done. But it's now let me... I can see 10th in my sight, but I've got to get past Gasly and Hulkenberg. Which, for a track that has got a massive long pit lane, I'm really pleased that I've caught back up again.
Well, I don't think we've left ourselves enough time to get onto predictions, but I am enjoying this conversation regarding legacies.
Yeah.
And so, why don't we do a few more to close out the episode? Because we did get through the news quite quickly at the start.
Yeah.
You're not getting this place back, Bottas, just because you took my wing off. So, well, we briefly spoke about Trulli, and I'd like to speak about him again, because he had quite a lot of nearly moments, I think, particularly at Toyota.
Yeah.
I remember him sticking it on pole in a Toyota. I can't remember which track it was at.
Indy. 2005.
Damn it, Bottas got back past me. Yeah, eat it. Don't care that I made contact with him. I waited 3 laps patiently. But yeah, Trulli always had that reputation, particularly when in his time at Jordan, to be an excellent qualifier and then bulls it in the race. And I don't think he ever really shook that off. I don't think I can recall any driver who had such a well-earned and consistent reputation for something like that. You know, a difference between their quality and race performances.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, he didn't exactly bow out gracefully, going on to found his own Formula E team that then folded when it built a gearbox wrong.
Yeah, that proper confused me, that. So, essentially, did they just go, oh god, we've done it so horribly wrong we can't run the car, bye?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it was necessarily a monetary issue, it's just they got it so badly wrong that they didn't think they had the knowledge to actually do it correctly.
That's crazy. Truly awful.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hoped for a better end of his career for him, because I always had a bit of a soft spot for Trulli.
Yeah, because the legacy was the Trulli train, in terms of, like... Because it's still even referred to today as, like, oh, there's a Trulli train going on. So, like, clearly he's left his mark somehow, even if that's not necessarily how you'd want to leave your mark. But his 2 seasons, or was it 2 or 3? 2 or 3 seasons at Lotus at the end, Kovalainen had already been proven to not be top tier, and he was like consistently half a second off Heikki already, and you kind of thought, oh, I was expecting so much more. So he was a real disappointing flat squid to everything. And also,
I was expecting so much more. Describes Kovalainen as well, to be honest.
Yeah. That was a shame. It was a shame. I think both of those careers promised more than they delivered, particularly with Ron's affinity with Finnish men.
Beetlejuice adds, Trilly was frustrating, pacing him, but never held it together when the tiniest amount of pressure was applied in a race. Yeah, that's pretty apt. Mm-hmm. That is pretty apt. I mean, there's been quite a lot of Neely men, though, haven't there, really? I mean, like, I'd put Fisichella in that category, and I'd put Frentzen in that category.
Absolutely. People who showed absolute class in the midfield or towards the rear, put them in a top-tier car, can't hack it. And that, particularly Frentzen on that, I think they're both drivers. In fact, this is probably, I think, a legacy of Villeneuve as well, is that they had... they were destroyed mentally by their teammates so that they could never actually show their true speed and class, because Frentzen, then when you think of 1999, that Jordan shouldn't have been battling for a championship, but he'd put it in there as an outside shot, but he couldn't
absolutely,
but couldn't do it with the championship winning car in 1997 with Villeneuve, because Villeneuve had mentally destroyed him. So,
well, Villeneuve used to psych him out, didn't he? He used to go out and do 2 fast sectors and then pit, just to prove that he could batter him.
Yeah. And it worked.
Beetlejuice says Fisichella was Italy's answer to a Lacey, but less good in the rain. I think that's a fairly apt description as well, actually.
I think Alesi crashed a lot more than Fisichella. I think... Yeah, it's just... Yeah.
The problem is, like, Alesi actually was another driver who was very up and down, because I thought he did an amazing job at Tyrrell. I thought he did pretty well, actually, at Ferrari, given they gave him some really shitty cars.
Yes.
But then he went to Benetton, and I don't know what happened, but the wheels fell off him completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought his 96 at Benetton wasn't too terrible, but do you remember 97, where he was just off all the time?
Yeah.
And you could argue that maybe the car was bad, but I think Gerhard Berger had an excellent 97, as I recall.
Yeah, well, he won in Germany, obviously. Done very well. No, Alesi in 96 was fine, because I think he came third. Did he come third in the championship, or did Schumacher get it? I'm trying to pull it out of the top of my head. But he was battling for Schumacher for best of the rest after the Williamses, so it couldn't have been terrible. But you know, when you kind of think, it's... When you're that far in your career, you shouldn't be Maldonado standards of accidents and drama.
No, definitely not. Oh, you got yourself a point. You got back in the points.
Yes, I did smash into Hulkenberg and lose a bit of my wing, and then spend the last 2 laps basically holding them up. But yeah, that was an interesting race. Really pleased for my recovery, because I didn't think I'd get into the points. I'm glad I did.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. I think I could have got third had it not been for Bottas and his choppy chops. In the constructors, we were feeling pretty confident in third, but actually Red Bull are only 16 points behind. They may actually close that gap. Because did we get third last year or fourth with Haas?
I thought we got fourth.
Fourth, yeah, so our target was third this year, wasn't it? And in the drivers, we're still 6th and 7th, although there's a bit of a gap between us now. That makes me unhappy.
Just having a look. Renault got ahead of Red Bull. Yes, 20
McLaren
points.
are 5th. McLaren are indeed 5th. Cody's, please, lol. Beetlejuice. Everyone has scored, though, in our...
Excuse me.
Everyone has at least 2 points.
Yeah,
which means they've scored at least twice.
That is good.
Well, no, they've scored at least once, but potentially twice.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that a lot. Considering, actually, 2018 was the first year that everyone that raced scored a point ever.
I did not know that. Shiver me timbers.
Ooh-ar.
So, I enjoyed our reminiscence package. Obviously, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, by which time I believe the car launches will be complete, but we won't be testing yet, right?
No, we won't. And testing's actually, they're going to be doing some broadcasting of it, of which I might just kind of have it streaming on in the background somewhere whilst I'm doing my day job. So if I can, I will. But that'd be good, because then we can talk car launches. We can do our ratemylivery.com. Thumbs up or thumbs
which we
down.
did comprehensively last year. We gave everyone a score out of 10. I think we can do the same this year.
Yeah, and we've got to have at least one crazy launch, surely.
Yes. Here's hoping that, McLaren launched their car into space. One last thing before we wrap out, because we didn't get a chance to talk about it in the episode, but I want to talk about the McLaren 2050 F1 concept very, very quickly.
Ah, yes.
Because I know we're done, but we've got like 4 minutes left. It annoyed me. It made me angry. Here's the reasons why. First, the press blurb said, "Oh, the car does 350 kilometers an hour," and I was thinking,
how?
I could draw a carrot and say, well, this car does 450 miles per hour. like, I think McLaren forgot at some point that this is a car that exists only in their imagination. And then, it annoyed me because all the press was like, look at this stunning McLaren concept. Oh, McLaren really know what they're talking about. It's like they could have written anything. They could have said, this car cures cancer. This car launches missiles out of the back and it hovers. I mean, they could have put literally anything out there. Concept cars at the best of times are wishful thinking combined with bragging rights somehow.
Yeah.
Why people were giving serious credence to the information that McLaren released with this drawing. They said stuff like, "Oh, it's entirely electric. It does 350 kilometers per hour, and it can drive upside down." And he's that's what you get from a child. Kids come home from school going, "Do you like my car? It's covered in spikes and it fires rockets." And you think, well, maybe in your imagination it does. What did you think of it? I'm not saying that it wasn't an attractive car and that I would like to see the Formula look like that, but maybe they should convince their board and their engineers to work on cars that actually exist in the world that could be used to race with.
This is exactly my point. And so yes, the concept looked fine, but once again, a bit like that. Although I loved it, that weird Grand Prix circuit that they done all the way around their hometown, where it felt like it's that mismatch again of where it feels like they've spent way too much time on that rather than thinking of the day job. And my other kind of question, and I don't know the answer to this, is that when you're looking at concept cars and stuff like that, is that just something that someone's just gone, "Oh, I was doodling this in my spare time and I thought this would be interesting"? Or are they lobbying for this is the direction of travel that we think the Formula should go in, and here's what we're doing? Because then it would have more of a credence, and then the technical blurb would be vaguely interesting if they could actually say, well, these are the types of technologies we'll be thinking of. Not that you know what's going on in 30 years' time, because we barely know what's going on next week. I
think there's a bit of both generally, because normally, in the car industry, concept cars are like a proof of technology. So they'll have a technology that isn't ready for commercial use, but they'll put it into a concept and say, look, this is what we're working on right now, and if we can refine it, then this is. And Ferrari and Red Bull have also come up with concept cars with bullshit statistics. Red Bull ended up in a video game as well, right?
Yeah. They've both got Gran Turismo cars in there, haven't they?
Yeah. So. I don't know what the benefit of it was, but it does tickle me a little bit that McLaren went off the boil massively in Formula 1, so they enter IndyCar because they're trying to win something, but maybe they're so uncertain about their ability to compete in Indy that what they've had to do now is draw attention to imagined victories. They're having to invent spaceship cars from the future that they're the best at making because they're not the best at making anything else anymore.
Is this where they're going to launch their own McLaren 2015 computer game for PS5 that will come out in 2021, where you can only race and win in McLaren, so therefore that they can like broadcast it and go, look at us, we've won something.
Congratulations to Beetlejuice, who won the 12 Hours of Bathurst on iRacing. Good man.
Oh, congrats. I didn't know Beetlejuice was a sim racer as well.
He is very much a sim racer. We've been having some conversations when I was... when my health was a bit better and I was streaming more regularly, we were talking actually about me getting a wheel this year, because I really think I need to take that step up. I am very keen to hop on the iRacing train, mate, definitely. If the time comes, then I shall be in contact, because I'm going to need all the help I can get. Well, thank you very much to everyone who stopped by. We had as many as 4 people in the stream on this end at one point, which is pretty good for us recently.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone who watched on replay. I know more people tend to watch on the replay than live. Maybe we should pick a different day. I don't know, because our midweek streams always have much higher view rates.
Don't they? Yeah.
People have better things to do on Saturdays apparently than listen to us. And thank you to you, sir, for fighting through your cold to get us back on track.
Thank you very much, and thank you to you as well for fighting through yours, because I know it's like we've decided to just become the Plague Brothers or something. It's been a while, but yeah, no, super excited, and there was something I was going to say and I can't remember now. Ah, yes, one final piece of news from me, if that's okay.
Yeah.
If anyone interested in circuits that are no longer used, I am now a narrator for the YouTube channel and website circuitsofthepast.com. So, yeah, I've just submitted across audio just before this went live for a tour of the brand's Hatch circuit. There's stuff that went on today that I didn't necessarily narrate on, that was around a Mercedes historical track that's no longer in use. But essentially, Herman, who lives in Austria, basically goes round or gets his mates to go around all disused circuits, video cameras them, and then where he can tries to get permission to go out onto the tracks and drive around them in like modern day cars. So yeah, really, really interesting, exciting. If you like that kind of stuff, or you like going around like disused buildings and seeing like what the old Reims pits were like that have now been given historical status in France, it's got all of that on there. So go and take a look. Circuits of the Past. It's on YouTube.
I will definitely be looking that up, actually. That's right up my alley. And congrats on landing the gig.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we will see you in 2 weeks' time. I hope you're all well and continue to be well. And we will see you a fortnight from now from the inside the iron lung that we will both be in.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.